Happens Log, August 12th, 2014. Robin Williams. Wow. Robin Williams passed away yesterday, and it's pretty well confirmed now that it was a suicide. I'm sure all of you have heard about it by now, and this was the thing I couldn't decide if I wanted to really weigh in on or not. Well, that's not even a matter of weighing in on. What is my opinion about an actor killing himself? Well, it's awful. It's really sad. It's really unfortunate. I mean, what words are strong enough? What a shame. What else can you say? And yet I'm sympathetic. You know, I mean, obviously, I always say this when I talk about a celebrity death, and I'm always on the fence, as I said, about whether or not to do things about celebrity deaths, because I seem to just say the same thing all the time and echo it. Although this is the first one I think I've talked about where it was someone where it was a person who took his own life. Obviously, I didn't personally know Robin Williams. The only reason that any of us who didn't know him are affected by it is because of his work and because we liked the man for what he did and the way he inspired us. And but as I said, anytime someone like this takes their own life, I am deeply saddened, but also sympathetic, because he was battling a lot of things. Just as far as I've read, that you know, he was back in rehab, and he had difficulty with alcoholism, and he was incredibly depressed. And it's important to have perspective, I think. I mean, I don't have any real insightful words of wisdom on this, but I guess all I'm going to say about that part of it is people are not going to, and this should go without saying, but it doesn't all the time, people are not going to just naturally be happy because they have physically everything anybody could ever want. You look at a guy like Robin Williams and you say, well, you had fame, you had fortune, what else could you possibly wish for? And that's not the way life is. I don't think right or fair to look at a person and say, you know, how dare you be sad when you have everything, when you have what people could only possibly dream of. You don't know what kind of pain he was under. You don't know what kind of stress a person like that endures until you live in their shoes. Public life is really hard. And putting yourself on display like that is really hard. And I know for Robin Williams, in interviews he's given and things, that it was an outlet, that he was prone to depression, and that doing comedy and doing improv and putting himself out there like that was an escape for him. It was strangely a way to combat that kind of fear that he had, and I think a lot of comedians have that. It's interesting that comedians a lot of the time seem to be the most complex of actors. You look at funny people, and it's easy to kind of oversimplify them and say and look at them as kind of two-dimensional, and only look at them by their comedy, and say, oh, well, he's funny, he makes people laugh, and that's great, and that's a good service, I guess, to make people happy. But it's easy to act like there's not any more to them than that, that people who make people laugh don't also cry, that people who make people laugh don't also have other feelings, and we use humor to diffuse tense situations, to make the difficult times easier. So wouldn't it follow that some of the people who are more prone to going in the comedic direction would be the kinds of people who are the most complex, who do have a lot of pain, and are the hardest to understand? This is really sad. I don't know what else to say about the actual the actual thing. You know, that he's dead. Than to say, wow, what a shame. I was really looking forward to more stuff from Robin Williams. We were supposed to get Mrs. Doubtfire 2. And I guess it's a lot easier now that it's not going to happen to say, oh man, I wish that had happened. I was really kind of like this about it. I was like, I don't know if we want that. Now that we're not going to get it, you know, it's hard not to be curious. But I don't mean to be callous and just go. And that's why I started with, isn't this incredibly sad, and how difficult is it to respond to suicide? Because I didn't want to be callous, and I didn't want to just say, oh, well, that sucks, we're not going to get Mrs. Doubtfire too. But I didn't want to mention it because that was a movie that Mrs. Doubtfire was a movie that we watched over and over and over again when we were kids. Looking at it critically now, if I had to go back to it, I don't think it's his best work, or at least it's one of necessarily the better pieces as far as story goes and stuff. Although all the stuff about like PBS and kids TV and stuff always really kind of hit me in a place. I thought there was some pretty good social commentary there. So never mind. You know, it's good. I mean, the more I think about it, I like it. My wife and I disagree on this, but I think I like Mrs. Doubtfire. But anyway, so but it was certainly one of his more interesting performances, and I mean, he just completely became that lady. And you know, you're watching this and going, it doesn't. There are some things played up for comedy in that movie that just feel kind of obligatory, and you know, you've got like the fire on the chest and all that kind of stuff, but then like it goes beyond just kind of the cross-dressing joke, right? Like this lady has this profound impact on these children's lives, and they find out that it was their dad the whole time. Wow, there's some powerful stuff there. Robin Williams was one of the top 3 comedians or comedic actors for me growing up. It was Bill Cosby, it was Jim Carrey, and it was Robin Williams. I don't think there's any one movie. I mean, I mentioned Mrs. Doubtfire because we watched it over and over and over again, but I don't think there was really one movie or performance or anything that really stuck with me over anything else with Robin Williams. I think he was just kind of perforating. He was everywhere. With Jim Carrey, it was The Mask, and it was Batman Forever, and you know, some other, so the Truman Show and some other things. There were like specific pieces, and then with Bill Cosby, it was the Cosby Show, which I grew up with, and I remember being 6 or 7 and being really upset when that got canceled. With Robin Williams, it was just his presence. He seemed to always be a force. He was just always there. Of course, the voice of the genie from Aladdin, maybe one of the first voices that as a kid, I mean, I was what, 8 or 9 when that came out, like one of the first voices when I was a kid that it was impossible not to know who that was. You know, I was like, oh yes, of course, Robin Williams voiced the genie. Everybody else is like in other things. I didn't know who Gilbert Gottfried was. I didn't know who a lot of different voices of other things too. But like he I didn't think about actors back then. But Robin Williams, you always knew him when it was him. Good Morning Vietnam, what a wonderful film. What a funny but thought-provoking and really kind of somber in places kind of movie. And then he had some incredibly interesting performances in the early to mid-2000s. I didn't know that he had such a big fight with depression, and it makes some of his choices in movies at that period make a lot of sense. He did some really gut-wrenching and sometimes even disturbing films, and I wonder if he was drawn to some of those things because they were about depression and because they were about the darker in the harder part of life. And I wonder if maybe he did some of that stuff. I'm speculating. Maybe he did some of that stuff because he didn't want to be just known as the clown. Certainly, when he was on a set and doing a comedic role, he was just constantly in character and jumping around and being crazy and goofy, and I guess he's got that in common with Jim Carrey. But then he would do these other more serious roles, and I think he became as well known for his serious roles as for his comedic roles. I am still haunted by 1 Hour Photo. That is one of the most twisted and disturbing movies I've ever seen, and there's a scene in that I cannot get out of my mind. I think it's a good film, but he picked some incredibly interesting projects. The Final Cut I watched for the first time about 4 or 5 months ago, And it's not a perfect movie. I think it's got some issues. I think it's got some third act stuff, but his performance is really good, and I can kind of see why he went after that role. Because he seemed to have kind of fascination with mortality, and with the whole of life. Where are we going, and what is the legacy we leave behind? It's going to be really interesting going back and watching certain movies now that this has happened. It's gonna. I feel like it changes the flavor of certain things. You go back, you look at things like Jack, a movie about a kid who grows up too fast because of a really rare disease, and gene condition, and he lives his whole life in like 15 years or something. I forget. Again, not a perfect movie, but all of these movies about mortality, really interesting. Anyway, I just wanted to make a video and talk for a few minutes about Robin Williams and say how incredibly sad I feel about this. And I know tons and tons of people are probably going to do the very same thing. But a few people had asked me if I was going to make a video, and like I said, I couldn't decide if I wanted to, and finally I decided, yeah, Robin Williams was certainly one of those big inspirations when I was a kid. And anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave comments, and I'll see you next time.